you hear that? Hear what? That hum. It's faint, but it's there. Like something vibrating. Probably just the generator. Or maybe you're imagining things again. No, it's different. It's not in the walls. It's everywhere. It began with conversations like these. Quiet, worried exchanges between people in the dead of night. Most dismissed the faint sound as background noise or fatigue, but those who noticed it felt it in their bones. A vibration, low and ominous, that seemed to resonate with the earth itself. Scientists would later describe it as a frequency beyond the range of human hearing, but something primal in the body could still sense it, a connection to something ancient. The hum was everywhere. In the air, beneath the ground, in the walls of every building. It was subtle, like a pulse, yet it was undeniable. Some swore it carried a sense of foreboding, like the earth itself was warning them. Others claimed to feel it in their sleep, a restless unease clawing at the edges of their dreams. The world's most brilliant minds were baffled. Could it be some new phenomenon? A glitch in the Earth's magnetic field? Or was it something far more sinister? It didn't matter how many times it was dismissed by officials as background noise or electrical interference. The hum was real, and it wasn't going away. Every attempt to measure it came up with results that made no sense. It didn't fit into any known patterns of natural frequencies. Something was very wrong. 3 days later, the aliens arrived. It happened so suddenly, so impossibly, that at first, no one quite believed their eyes. It wasn't just a ship. There were hundreds of them, scattered across the globe. Massive, incomprehensible structures hanging motionless in the sky, their shapes defying all known laws of physics. They were vast, monolithic, like black gods hanging over humanity's cities. Each one cast a shadow so deep it swallowed light. Incoming. All units prepare for impact. The frantic voice came from a soldier in the United States, his words amplified and crackling over a static-laden radio. The first reaction from humanity was confusion. Panic didn't strike right away. People watched the sky with awe, waiting for something to happen. But the stillness only deepened the fear. No one knew if the ships were a message, a warning, or an imminent attack. And then, as if to answer that question, the silence broke. "We're losing Chicago." The voice on the radio was frantic, almost incoherent. "Where are our fighters?" "Gone, sir. Every strike we've launched has failed. Their shields are impenetrable." The first beams came with no warning. They weren't missiles or lasers. They were beams of light. Thin, almost invisible, yet powerful enough to melt buildings into slag and reduce people to ash. The devastation was instantaneous. It wasn't a war. It was a massacre. Humanity's greatest weapons, nuclear warheads, air superiority, mechanized infantry, were useless against a force that fought like gods. The aliens didn't fight. They eradicated. Cities fell within moments. Entire populations vaporized, leaving behind only the faintest traces of what had once been. Governments crumbled in a matter of hours, leaving scattered remnants of resistance in their wake. The alien ships hovered, undisturbed, as if the destruction of humanity was some insignificant prelude to their true purpose. "We need to evacuate to the underground bunkers," President Reynolds ordered as the lights in the White House flickered. His voice, usually steady, trembled with a kind of helplessness. Now, people ran. The sound of military jets screaming across the sky became an eerie echo. The world was falling apart, but there was no one left to stop it. In the chaos, underground bunkers became humanity's last hope. Beneath the scorched earth, scientists, engineers, and military leaders gathered in hastily constructed shelters, each driven by a single thought: survival. Among them was Dr. Eleanor Strauss, a physicist who had spent her life studying sound waves and their effects on the environment. She had long since suspected that the Earth was more than just a home. It was a living, breathing entity, attuned to frequencies and vibrations in ways humans could barely comprehend. And now, that knowledge might be the key to saving the planet. "You're telling me sound is the key?" General Harris asked, his voice low, filled with disbelief. His uniform was stained with the grime of days without sleep, his face drawn and weary. He had seen too much in the last 72 hours. His world, and the people he had sworn to protect were slipping through his fingers. Yes, Eleanor replied, pushing forward a sheet of data. It's their weakness. Their ships rely on a specific frequency to stabilize their shields. It's constant. I've mapped it. The room fell silent. The scientists and military officers exchanged uneasy glances. The idea sounded absurd. Sound as a weapon? It was laughable, until it wasn't. The idea that something as invisible and intangible as sound could challenge the might of the alien invaders was inconceivable, but the alternative was certain extinction. And what? We just play the world's loudest song and hope they explode? Harris scoffed, though there was a hint of desperation in his tone. No, Eleanor snapped, her eyes blazing with determination. We weaponize sound. We use the Earth's own resonance against them. Their technology isn't shielded from it because they didn't expect it to be a threat. It's their blind spot. The officers around the table exchanged uneasy glances, but no one had a better idea. If this was crazy, it was their only hope. You really think this will work? General Harris asked after a long pause, his voice a mixture of hope and skepticism. It has to, Eleanor replied, or we're done. The next 48 hours were a blur of frantic activity. The Resonance Project, as they called it, was humanity's last gamble. Teams across the world worked without rest to build massive sound generators. Speakers the size of buildings were constructed in open fields, stadiums, and abandoned cities. Engineers scrambled to calibrate machines to emit precise frequencies, deep, primal tones that echoed the Earth's natural hum. As they worked, the alien ships continued their assault, seemingly without effort. Cities fell, governments crumbled, and still, the hum persisted. Just beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the fight that lay ahead. We've got the frequency locked in, Eleanor told the control room, her voice tight with exhaustion. 7.83 hertz. The Schumann resonance. It's poetic. The Earth's own voice fighting back. And it'll bring them down? General Harris pressed, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the screen filled with flashing lights and numbers. It's the only chance we've got. The final operation began in New York City. The alien ship loomed above the skyline, its vast shadow swallowing the city whole. On the ground, enormous speakers aimed skyward, their massive frames trembling with barely restrained power. All units, prepare to activate the resonance weapon, General Harris said, his voice steady, though his hands were clenched into fists. Frequency at full power, Eleanor reported, sweat dripping from her brow. Do it, Harris ordered, his voice firm despite the mounting pressure. The speakers roared to life, their sound deafening. For a moment, nothing happened. The deep, resonant hum rolled across the city, vibrating through the streets, shaking windows, rattling the bones of the people in the vicinity. It's not working, someone shouted in disbelief. Wait, Eleanor whispered, her hand gripping the console. Then it began. A tremor ran across the alien vessel's surface, subtle at first, like ripples in a still pond. The glow of its shields flickered, dimming for a moment. We've got movement. More power, Harris barked, his eyes wide with disbelief. The frequency blared louder, resonating through the earth and sky. Windows shattered. Concrete cracked. But the alien ship's surface began to crumble. Its black hull split like glass under a hammer, fragments falling in great shards. It's breaking apart, Eleanor screamed, unable to hide her elation. The alien ship collapsed, crashing to the earth in a deafening roar that shook the city to its foundations. Humanity, for the first time, saw an alien vessel fall. We did it, someone whispered. But it was not a cheer. It was a question. Across the world, humanity's final fight began with the hum of sound, a weapon born not of fire or steel, but of Earth's forgotten voice. What's the status in London? General Harris demanded, his eyes fixed on the global map. Red dots scattered the display, each one marking an alien presence. The generators are online, sir, an officer replied, voice thick with hope and fear. They've taken down one ship, but two others are still holding. Tell them to recalibrate. Push the frequency higher if they need to. Just bring them down, sir, Reports from Tokyo indicate their generators are overloading. The equipment can't take much more. Damn it, Harris muttered, his mind racing. We're close. Too close to fail now. Eleanor stood nearby, listening as technicians shouted updates from around the world. She looked down at her trembling hands. The resonance. It was their salvation. But if they couldn't control it, it might destroy them as surely as the aliens would. We're going to lose power, she said quietly, her voice hollow. What? Harris turned to her, his brow furrowed. The resonance. The Earth can handle it, but our systems, we're overloading them. It's like trying to hold back a tsunami with a dam made of paper. If we don't stabilize it, then stabilize it. Harris snapped, his voice raw. Eleanor shook her head, a bead of sweat tracing down her cheek. We need to sync it better. If we adjust the power flow to match the Earth's own harmonics, the pressure will ease. We're fighting sound with sound. But right now, we're out of tune. Then get in tune, Doctor. We're counting on you. As the team scrambled to recalibrate, the map shifted. Another red dot blinked out. Paris had succeeded. Eleanor exhaled slowly, her mind racing. The sound was their salvation. But if they couldn't control it, it might destroy them as surely as the aliens would. Status in Tokyo? Harris asked, though his voice was barely above a whisper. They've stabilized it. The aliens are falling back. A cheer erupted. Around the world, red dots began to disappear. For the first time, humanity could see victory. But there was no time to celebrate. The fight was far from over. The hum, once a subtle warning, now resonated with the Earth's own rhythm. And this time, it carried the promise of hope as the battle for survival surged into a new phase.